baby. We are live. We are Michael Knight in New York City. We are on your. We're in the air and everywhere,
If
including
it's a
your.
Monday, a Wednesday, or a Friday, you can count on us.
Oh,
Now, if it's a
I
Tuesday
not
or a
always.
Thursday, we're in our lab sessions.
Well, we're. I thought about this, Michael. Actually, oddly enough, after the show on Wednesday, and I was really blaming myself for saying, well, we say we're going to go on the air at 10:10. And then we never really get on the air at 10:10. We're always 10:14, 10:15, 10:18, 10 whatever it is.
But never 10:07.
But never well, once we did 10:08, I think. I think once we did 10:08. But I also then said to myself, but you guys are shall we say semi-retired? Would that be a fair assessment of what we are?
It's unfair, but it's fair.
Yeah,
But
it's
God, is
unfair,
that unfair?
but it's the truth. And the truth is that
Remind me to tell you about my radio dream. Go ahead.
okay. But so, I mean, I think that we should change the time of the show to around 10:10 because
Okay.
if you yeah if you talk to a lot of retired people, you ask them what time they're going to get somewhere. They always say, well,
Later.
around 11 o'clock.
11s.
Yeah,
Or if
around
you, or if
1:15.
we're the kind of people who, when you make an appointment, they say, "Is 10 o'clock good?" And you say, "Do you have anything later?"
Yeah, that's our second biggest line. Do you have any? I had, I had to go to a doctor's appointment a couple of weeks ago, and a woman said, "Well, can you be here at 7:30?"
Yes, I
Just
could be.
crack it up.
I could be, but I'm not going to be.
I could be if my arm was hanging off or my something was bleeding. I was gushing blood. I guess I could be there at 7:30. But for you to stick a
Make a
cold
terrible mess.
stethoscope on my chest,
Well, the funny
nah.
thing about that time of day, anything before 9 o'clock, being there in Los Angeles, if you want to be somewhere at 8:30, and you have to go somewhere to get there, you have to leave at 7:30, which means you got to get up at 6:30 or 5:30,
Yes.
and that's just a fact of where I live. I didn't mean to live in a metropolis, but right now I can't feature myself living anywhere else. I want, even though I don't go to the clubs, I want the clubs to be playing across town.
You
Even
don't
though I
go to
don't
the
go to all the
clubs?
restaurants, not that much, no.
Okay.
Thinking about going to support our local radio station. They're having a big show at the Alex Theater in Glendale, and Pete Yorn's going to play, and Jackson Brown's going to play, and a number of other artists are on the bill. And I thought, it's right
Nice.
there. It's a beautiful theater. It's right down the street. We should go. It's in support of the SoCal Sound, 88.5 KCSN, as in nobody knows.
As
And it's a good
opposed to
station, and it's a good
KCSM,
station, which was my college station.
which is where you cut your teeth.
It's where I said visibility instead of visibility, and my classmate who was listening to it never let me forget it.
Vidability.
He'll see me. If he saw me today, Jack Baglietto would look at me and go, "What's the visibility?"
That's pretty good. Divinity. Well, you put it into your pituitary and you'll find out.
I started laughing. I started laughing about that the other day. The laptop was plugged in and leaning against the wall over here, and I said, "I'm gonna check it." I don't know what I said, but the word "pituiter" came instead of the word "computer." I don't say computer in any situation. If I were at the Apple store, I'd say, "You guys got some interesting pituiters over here."
I'm the same way. I hardly ever say computer. It's always pituita. I wish we knew who that guy was, man. That was the that could have been that was in the top 10 funniest phone calls we ever.
And he was outraged that Laura Gherking was doing the picks. And he said, "It ain't about the picks, and it's not about who wins. It's the fact that we're using a psychic to make the picks." But I should be making the picks, she said. I got a pituiter. And got it right here in the pituiter. And it doesn't matter because Laura always picks the Huskies, so it doesn't. We don't need a psychic, but we go to the
Yeah,
trouble of having a psychic.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. It wasn't that we believed what she had, or later on when I had the nun, the nun that used to pick the sister predictor, who used to pick the and was consistently wrong. I mean, she made an art form of being wrong.
did you did you spank her or grab her by the ear and drag her into the next room until she got it right?
No, no, I wanted to, but she was
I wanted to.
but that was
Yeah.
that's a whole different thing. And I don't know if we can talk about on the air. But no, but she was great, and Laura was great too. Laura was. I mean, I think people secretly look forward to that Friday morning, um, you know, bit with her, and how much, I mean, that was one thing about us, Michael, is we had so many different bits going on. I mean, you were really good at finding the interesting people to bring on the air. I mean, the late Kirby Ferris from the surf shop,
Surf shop. Yeah.
and our other guy, what was his name? The guy from Monday Night Football that we had every week.
Um,
He was one of the producers, I think, or one of the
long time producers and spotters.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, he was great. He gave you more about Monday Night Football than if you had Al Michaels or Don Meredith sitting there next to you. Because he was a lot freer. He was anonymous, so he was a lot freer at what he could say. We had who was
he
the
had
ref?
he had a nickname middle name. It was like
Yeah, boy, I have to think about it. It'll come to me, as everything
okay.
does these days.
And what was the
A
last
half
one?
hour.
What was the last one you mentioned?
The referee that used to call us all the
And never
time.
tell his name. Yeah,
Never
NFL
tell his name.
referee.
Although I know who he is. I've actually met him. So and so I know I still won't blow his identity, but I know I've met him and talked to him and know who he is, and we're friends. He actually wound up marrying a friend of mine.
Is that
So
because we used to say, or I'm sorry, I used to say that the Pac-10 at that time Pac-10 referees would get liquored up before the game?
right.
This is the Huskies. Huskies playing Oregon State. We don't have to worry about the score of this game. We can get liquored up before the contest.
Yeah.
It's no longer
I
true
mean,
of
one of the
Oregon State,
masterful
but
things that you did, that you created, was it, and which I always loved, that I always tried to emulate, was to create a community of characters on the radio, because you realized, as many don't, that it's an ensemble
it's
that
the
that
theater
wins
of the
the day.
mind, which is one of the elements of radio that is part of radio. No matter how you do radio, you create some level of theater of the mind, whether you intend
Right,
to or not. You're talking about something that we can all see, but only in our mind's eye. So you can
right,
drive down the road and operate your car safely and see traffic accurately and still entertain these ideas in the theater of your mind and turn up the radio and get lost in it. The experience is like none other. It's like storytelling. It's like telling a child a story. The reason they love you to tell them stories is because it takes them somewhere immediately. They're transported instantly. They know the story and they know where they're going and they know where the transport will take them. But that's still the reason that they want the magic of the story to be told one more time. Tell me that again. Take me there again. Send me there again. And if you do, the reason bits are done at a regular time is that person on the way to Tacoma is on that day at that time taken via you, and they don't want to miss it. They don't want to miss the That's why contests only have one proviso for me. The contest can be about anything. The prize can be anything, but it has to be as much fun for the people who are listening as it is for the people who are playing. In other words, it has to be a show. The
Right.
contest is secondary to the process of entertainment through the
Right.
contest.
Third caller at ba 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 does not constitute entertainment.
It's not theater
But
of the mind. No.
if you have, I mean, I remember for a while we would ask we would do trivia, but we would ask the same trivia question every time. Which, do you remember what it was?
No.
What are the three rivers
Oh,
in front of Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh?
that's a great question.
And we must have used that question 1,000 times. And it would
And some
shock
people
me
would,
when someone would call up and not know it.
and not exactly, and have no clue. How am I
But
supposed to
yet,
know that? Well, you're a sports
yeah, but
fan.
I would hazard a guess that um, that if you were a regular listener to the show, if you didn't know it by the second year of you listening to the show, you were never going to learn it at all. It was just but it was funny every time we used that. People were expecting this big sports trivia question, and it's the same. It's the same question. It was our go-to trivia question.
And Groucho Marx, that was his go-to question, was who's buried in Grant's tomb. And the interesting thing about that is there are some people who still don't get that question. Grant's tomb. How am I supposed to know who's buried in Grant's tomb? I'm not from New York. I don't know who Grant is.
Yeah.
Give me a hint. That's
So
why I
tell me
love the
about
show
your radio
Cash
journey.
Cab. It happened last night. I've been having these vivid dreams for some reason, about 3 days in a row, but not about radio. But sooner or later, if you're in radio, you have to have the radio dream, the nightmare where you're on the air, sitting at the board, and the board makes no sense. There's nothing on it that looks familiar. The record that's playing, you can't see it, but you can hear it, and it's running out. So all you have to do is find another record to play, and you're good. But there are no records, and there are no elements of broadcast. There's no microphone. You can't do anything right. And it's coming down to dead air, and that's weird. Well, last night, I had a dream that I was a traffic reporter. And current age, I had now, at the end of my career, gone back to trying to get any kind of job in radio. And I got a job as a traffic reporter, and I was supposed to go in for my interview. I thought I'd been hired, but I was supposed to go in and get familiar with it. And the person I was going to talk with was Chris Quimby, who was the program director at KFW, the real program director at KFWB here in LA when I first got hired years ago.
Right.
And she says, "You're cutting it kind of close when I get there." And I said, "Well, I'm 10 minutes early." She said, "Yeah, but you'll be on the air at so and so." And I said, "I'm not supposed to be on the air. I'm here for an interview." No. That we don't need to do that. Your shift starts in like 5 minutes. But I don't know where the computers are. I don't know how to read them. I don't know what the format is. I don't know what my lockout is. That's the crazy thing. I said to myself, I could fake the content. But what the hell is my lockout? Which is the last thing you say. Hi, I'm Vinne Riccici, broadcasting live from Stinky's Traffic Central. And I couldn't get past that. We were wedged in time in my dream with the where's the computer, where's the fax, when do I go on, how do I know I'm on the air, where's the studio, I've never been here before, how does the equipment work? And that was hellish night because it took forever for that dream to leave me alone. It was a real radio nightmare because I was supposed to be on the air doing specific content. I didn't know what how they were going to throw it to me. I didn't know where. Do I record it and email it? Do I send it? Am I live? Hellish nightmare. And that it's been a while since I've had one, but the feeling is always the same. It's I've got this if I can just figure it out, but a level of panic and ugliness because you don't know how anything works. It's perfect. I used to have theater dreams when I was a theater student, and my theater dream was always the same. We were doing Shakespeare, but I didn't know what play. I was in the play, but I didn't know what character. The play is underway. They're already talking, and I can't, by listening to it, even figure out what play it is, so I can fake what my dialogue is going to be. And you're backstage in the wings, and it gets quiet, like it's your entrance, but you don't know where to come on. You don't know what to say when you get there. And I think that's as bad as the radio dream, if not worse, because of the live audience is right in front of you. And plus, you have to interact with the other people in the show. And you don't know what show it is. You don't know what part you're playing. It's awful. It's a terrible, ghastly feeling.
It's interesting because I've had a similar dream to that um, over the course of my life a few times. I mean, I was theater major as well, and I've had a very similar dream to that, except that in my dream, I just start talking, and
Yeah,
I have
you
no
can do
idea
that.
what's going on or what I'm supposed to be, but I just start. I guess it's this theater equivalent to if you always presume that that you're on, the mic is
Yeah,
on. Never think that it's on.
right.
So and I can't remember off the top of my head what I did, what I said, but I remember that in one of the dreams, it's always stuck with me that it was you know quite quite interesting because everybody was aghast. I mean, it was supposed to be. And I remember thinking, looking, and I mean, I've had, like I said, I've had this dream a couple of times. I remember looking at the audience, and they all looked like their mouths were open. Like
Yeah.
you know,
I'm getting through, but I don't know if they like it.
yeah, I'm either going to get killed or
Something's wrong. I don't know how much longer we can sustain it. And there's no end to that dream. There's no final scene. The, the radio dream
yeah,
is
you
just
wake up.
stopped somehow. You go on to another part of your dream, and then theater dreams, you never that never gets resolved either. And that's horrible to wake up with it unresolved. What happened to the show? What happened to the show? You'll never excuse me, you'll never know. So
Yeah,
I had the I guess I saw Chris Quimby's face on Facebook or something, and that was an interesting story that happened during her reign. We had a situation where these guys were running from the police. It was a slow chase, but they thought that these guys were armed. They believed that they were involved in some sort of a robbery, armed robbery. So the cops are chasing these guys all over LA, and they're going in neighborhoods, not the freeways. They were going through neighborhoods and shopping centers and things like that, and they just keep going and going and going. So I'm the reporter in the car that day. I'm trying to catch up to them. Pete Demetrio, the great reporter for Cape Beast, on the line on the phone with me, telling me where they're going, and I try and catch up with them. And we go through several neighborhoods and end up in Culver City. That's where I catch up to them. And the cops have pulled them over and done a pit maneuver on the guys, and they spin out in their car, which is like a mid-size, not doesn't matter what kind. I think it was a Pontiac. Spins out and ends up on somebody's lawn in this residential neighborhood. And then the cops descend in numbers, and then the press descends the numbers because we've been chasing these guys now for a while. I went all the way across town. I started in Hollywood, and I caught them in Culver City, which is nowhere near Hollywood.
Right.
And they were armed, but the guns were in the trunk. So there weren't any shots fired. Nobody's life was threatened. And these guys were in handcuffs. And my job is to jump out of my car, my news wagon, get an interview with an eyewitness of someone who saw the pit maneuver from the pit place right there, and go live on the air and do that all within less than 5 minutes. You're live in 5, get the sound and go. So I got the sound, I talked to the guy, but there's this kid on a bike right next to us because the whole neighborhood is out on the street now.
Right.
And during the interview, he's saying, I saw it. I can tell you, I saw it. And I said, shut the fuck up for a minute. And a lady in her house robe, a schmata, standing on the sidewalk, hears this and is outraged that I would speak to a child that way. Forget about the interview. Forget about the situation. She's angry about that. So I give her my business card and say, I have to file this story. Here's who I am. Goodbye. And by the time I get back to the station, the general manager's got a very long face. And I tried to tell him the whole story, but he didn't want to hear it. So that was my Chris Quimbry was angry, the program director was angry, the general manager was angry, but I got the interview, the story, and I was live in 5 with the whole thing. After chasing them all across town, I should have gotten a pat on the back for the achievement of doing it all in record time and covered the story perfectly on their clock. Forget about what the reality was like. They wanted it live in 5,
Right.
and with an interview, which I got. So I think we all learned something that day. I don't know if the kid and the woman in the schmata got any smarter.
No,
But
I
it's
don't. I
one of
don't
my
know.
favorite.
If they, you
It's
know,
it's one of my favorite stories because we worked so hard to get that story. We got the story, but I had to pay a professional price for
well, yeah. I
speaking
mean, for
out.
it because it's a strange world out there, and people say, well, it's stranger now than it ever has been, and the reality is, no, it's not. It's always
Maybe,
been.
maybe, yeah, it's pretty
It's always
strange.
been strange. It's always been a little whacked out. So anyway, um, I went to a show last night, Michael.
Oh, what'd you see?
I saw Elvis Costello and
Mm.
Daryl Hall.
And who?
Daryl Hall,
Oh, Daryl
Hall and
Hall.
Oates.
Great. Yes, Daryl's house.
Um,
I love that.
yeah, Elvis was spectacular as always. Uh, you know, he delivers. He's still one of those performers that delivers a Ramones type show. 1 hour, um, 60 songs, and not a bad one in the bunch. And
Did he have a good
and
band?
Daryl Hall was a little bit different. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what the dispute is between Hall and Oates, but
In
anybody
any
with a clear
business is
mind would
personal.
resolve it
Yeah.
because Hall is out there doing all of the Hall and Oates songs, and he doesn't have Oates with him. And I personally was offended, but it was a good show. It was good to be out in out. I'm not a big. I don't. I'm not a big show guy anymore. Like seeing the Rolling Stones with 50 or 60,000 other people, while
Yeah.
at one point in my life was awesome. Uh, at this point, not so awesome anymore. Wait a minute, I gotta open the door for Daisy. She's looking
Come
like
on
she
in,
wants to.
Daisy.
Hi, Daisy. Oh,
Daisy.
Daisy,
Daisy's
wait.
a lovely golden retriever who comes and enjoys our show but doesn't like to be in the hall. She likes to be in the room with Vinny. She wants to. She knows that we're on the air because she hears his voice, and she's a loyal, good dog,
Daisy.
like all golden retrievers are.
Oh, she's such a sweet
You
little
know, you
dog.
know, you know who loved golden retrievers and still does was Stephen Seaweed. Raised them and had them and bred them and
Yeah,
trained them and loved them and brushed them, and he was
yeah.
he
He's always
would
got
he
a picture of himself with the golden
he's
retriever on his Facebook page. So anyway,
I want to
great
talk
show.
to
New
him.
venue was on a farm, Remlinger Farms, which I don't know if when you were living up here you might have taken your lovely daughter to at one point or another, but it's out in Carnation, and it has they do the hay rides and to pick the vegetables, pick the berries, pick this, pick that, and they've
You pick
added
them.
now this year concert to their
Uh-huh.
repertoire out there, and really nicely, really well run. Um, you know, what was it? $8 for a beer. Now I got to be honest
Well,
with you, pal. $8 for a beer
you
in
got to
this
really
day and
like beer.
age at a concert venue. I mean, $3 for soda. I, I mean, if nothing else, they proved that they're not in it for profit. But they have some more shows coming up, and I'll probably wind up. They're going to have
How was the crowd? Big crowd.
crowd was good. I mean, it was an our age crowd,
Hmm.
and I was lucky enough. I don't know how my daughter wound up doing this, but she got us front row seats, so we were
Wow, it's been
sitting
on.
in the front row for Elvis, which was awesome for me because I could count the times that I've gotten front row or second row or something like that.
I
Um,
got front row seats to see Yes in. I guess they were in. I want to think the East Bay somewhere, and they brought a stage that was a movable stage, not like the San Carlos Theater in the
yeah,
Around thing, but
I actually had front
it,
row seats in that for Stevie Wonder in that
wow,
venue, and but as you know, the stage moves,
it does. You,
so
and
you
you
may
don't,
have a front row seat for a time,
and there it goes.
but then you wind up being backstage. Although I think that they now I went 4 nights to Stevie Wonder. He played 5 nights at the Circle Star, and I went 4 of the nights. And for some reason, I remember them maybe for the last 2 nights locking the stage in place.
Stevie said, "Listen, we're not doing that anymore."
Right. I don't know if it was bothering him or there was something going on, but I'm pretty sure that the last 2 nights, which I was not in the front row all the nights, just one of the nights, they locked the stage in place. So
I remember going to the Circle Star Theater to see the Beach Boys, and I the lights come on and they're playing the first song, whatever it was, and I'm going, "This is not right. Where the hell's Brian Wilson?" They hadn't said that he wasn't coming. This was the beginning of his problems with travel and anxiety and performance. And it wasn't Bruce Johnston, who was the bass player and the singer, because they'd been newly replaced. It was, and I realized I saw a rare edition of the Beach Boys, even though I was disappointed that Brian Wilson wasn't there, because playing bass and singing was Glenn Campbell,
uh,
who was a member of the Wrecking Crew, the studio musicians who backed the Beach Boys in the studio, and a talented player, but nobody knew who Glenn Campbell was in those days. He hadn't had any hits. He didn't have a show. He hadn't done any movies.
right. So that had to be like
But
1964, 65, something like that.
somewhere, and it was a good night. And I've since come to love Glenn Campbell for his extraordinary voice and his guitar playing and his experience as a younger musician of the day that I'm talking about, who
Right.
worked in the studio with the best of the very best. The best drummers, the best guitarists, the best groups, the best hits, the best studios. He was a young guy who wasn't from Hollywood, and he made it, became a part of that crowd. And the admiration I have for studio musicians, Nashville Cats or wherever the case may be, the New York players, is that they come in and they don't know who you are, they don't know what the song is, and they don't know who they're going to be playing with. They don't know if it's a ballad or a rocker, and they don't care. What's the song? Ah, I got it. And they do. They absorb it instantly, and their part becomes emblematic of what the song is going to be. Where minutes ago there was nothing, now there is an ensemble playing a beautiful rendition of the song. And if you've ever heard a band rehearse who's just a band instead of total professionals, you'll know how hard that is. How hard for them, because bad bands keep making the same mistakes all over again. They start the same way, they have the same problem in the middle, and they don't know how to end it. Studio musicians never make the same mistake twice,
Right.
and they go to the solution every time.
Well, they
And
have
I
the
find that
luxury
I
of
find
being
it
able to,
fascinating.
yeah, they have the luxury of being able to, come back for another take. Where bands that are out there live a lot of times, or depending on what the situation is, egos. I mean, in watching and reading about the Wrecking Crew, there were obviously egos there, but it seemed
No
like
doubt.
they were able to subvert those egos to make it sound good.
And the idea that there was three chords in a song doesn't mean that it's simplistic. It just means that it's simple. And
Right.
playing simply sometimes is the very hardest thing to do. The Also, the number one mistake that super shredders and people who have great technical abilities and great chops make invariably over time is they can't play consistently in time. They rush it. They can play so fast. They have mastered the idea of the guitar and the staccato delivery of notes that they can play quickly. They can play with great power, but they can't play in time. They go too fast. Invariably, they go too fast. And the great thing about studio musicians is what's the time? They lock it in. They have
Yeah.
that internal clock that allows them to play just a tad behind the beat, and the track is fabulous.
So now, when you mentioned that, the first name that came to my mind is Skunk Baxter, from Steely Dan, who
Great
is a
guitarist.
great guitarist. I mean, he can take, he can. You talk about a shredder. This guy can, get up there and do it with anybody. He may be. I mean, the guy
Yep.
is phenomenal. But whenever you see him play live, he's like he's here, and the rest of the
Yeah.
band is here. There's a
It's
great clip of
it, it,
he and a band doing "Ricky Don't Lose That Number" from the Nam show
mhm.
several years ago. And Skunk is great, but he's playing in a different direction
Yeah.
than everybody else is going. And I mean, it makes for interesting listening.
But
And
it's
maybe
also
to
interesting that Steely Dan would have never accepted that as a take. The one thing that they did was that they would throw away the whole ensemble and come in the next day with a different drummer and a different guitarist and a different bass man, different keyboardist, and do it again. Just start from the top.
yeah,
But
that's a phenomenal. That's a group that's always intrigued me so much. I mean, just absolutely, blown me away in what they were, because it was a band, but it really was two guys, and
with an
it was
idea.
it was the musical version of a pickup softball game. It's like you gather everybody in the schoolyard. Okay, I got you, I got you, I got you, I got
Right.
you, I got you, I got you. So you had Becker and Fagan always picking. Um, but boy, did they pick some great musicians along the way. The addition
They
of
knew who the best session men were wherever they were recorded, and they would bring them in different combinations. And Bernard Purdy, the famous Pretty Purdy, the drummer. Larry Carlton was a consistent contributor. Their original guitarist that played alongside Scott Baxter, Denny Diaz. Um, Victor Feldman, who was a great, talented percussionist and composer and piano player. Um, Chuck Rainey, the extraordinary bass player. These are guys who play anything, put anything in front of them, a chart or no chart, arrangement or head arrangement. Uh, they blossomed in that situation. And I don't know who on the list of current artists on the charts turns to those support turns to that type of musician for support for contributions for
I I
influence
don't
and
know
for
that.
color.
I don't know it. I don't know the music world as well as I used to. So I don't certainly won't say that I'm an expert on it at all. But I don't see that kind of. I mean, I'm sure there are but I think computers have changed that whole thing because you can have you can auto tune and you can uh, garage band and the crap out of anything you do these days.
You can invent it technically, but somewhere along the line, you've got to play to a beat, to a feel. There has to be some element of creation for the track. Otherwise, your vocals have got nothing to work with, nothing to play
Yeah.
over. And that's
Although although with
yeah.
AI, and I see the point of these musicians and artists who are saying, well, in the future, um,
It might not be me. It'll sound like me, but it won't be me.
you won't need me because you can take snippets of me
Yeah.
saying AEIOU, doing the vowels and come up with music from that.
There's not like a good example of that is there's a Randy Travis song now on the country charts, and apparently he did not sing it. It was created from previous sound of Randy Travis and made into a song. And I don't know if he's still alive, isn't he? I don't think it's from. It's not like
Oh,
they. I don't know why they did it that way, unless he
I
through
think he
problems with
may
health
have.
he can't sing that one.
Yeah, no, see, now that's interesting because for some reason it sticks in my mind. But I got to be honest with you, I'm not as uh, yeah. It still says is here, so yeah, it looks like he's still alive. Um, Randy Bruce Treywick is Randy Travis's real name, and oh, that's right, he had a stroke. That's what happened with Randy Travis.
Well, life got kind of weird for him. Remember, he was doing a lot of driving through Nashville in his limousine, wearing a bathrobe, three sheets to the wind. By the way, when you drink, and I no longer imbibe in alcohol, how much do you have to drink to get one sheet to the wind, two sheets to the wind, and then finally the ultimate place where you go, where Randy Travis went, and that's three sheets to the wind. And are these full time sheets? Are they fitted sheets? Are they Egyptian cotton sheets? Are they percale? Are they
Well,
desirable
I
sheets
think
or office sheets? Are
I
they
think
your
they're the kind of
sheets?
sheep that you, in one point in time, would have driven through a neighborhood, as you just said, like in Nashville, and seen hanging from clotheslines in the back of in the back of houses in the neighborhood, and you'd see one sheet, two sheet, three sheets, and it would probably be Dad trying to get home between those sheets. I guess I don't know. As quick as I could come up with. By the way, Travis released that album himself. His voice was recreated using artificial intelligence, according to Wikipedia. 2024. Um, where that came from is the album, and they used AI to take snippets of what he had done before, stuff that they had on tape, and recreate, which is
Made a song.
again the good use. If
Right.
Randy Travis, after having a stroke and these difficulties, can create something like that, I mean, it's still him creating it. That's actually a beautiful use of it. But you know, and I know, and everybody knows that the record business being what it is, excuse me, it's only a matter of time till people just start putting out, you know, uh, uh, building songs off of a commercial that somebody did, or this or that or the other thing, and
Plus,
making money.
it's a game. It's a game of rights. If you have the rights to something, well, Vinny didn't record this album. Well, we had the rights to the music from the outtakes. We used Vinny's voice. We had the backing tracks. I own the song. What's to stop me from putting it out? We haven't heard from Vinny for a while. I got a hit tune that I think's going to go. I have the rights, and I'm going to do it. It's out. It's been released. It's on your desk now.
Well, it was interesting because that kind of came up last night in my as I went to this show. I went with my daughter, and I we were talking about Hall and Oates, and
Mm-hmm.
essentially this show was a Hall and Oates show without Oates.
Right.
And but it was interesting to me because there were certain songs he didn't do. So of course, I'm starting to try to figure out. Well, does he own the rights to some of these songs, and does Oates own the rights to some songs? Did they co-write songs, and he can't do the songs that because there's certain songs that he probably can't do for some reason. And I didn't, I mean, I didn't sit there and get into it at the time, but today at some point, I want to look it up and see exactly why and what the dispute is between him, because it's a pretty nasty dispute
They
that's
have
going on.
restraining orders. They can't even approach one another. Apparently,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when
physical
you,
restraining
yeah,
orders.
and yeah, I mean, it's the sad end of the business, the music business, is that it's what kept us from probably having two or three more actual Beatle albums.
Right.
Uh, what kept us from? I mean, it's what kept the Rascals from playing together for so many years until they finally put
Yes.
their differences aside. But they couldn't keep it. They started arguing again and blew the whole thing up.
Same thing happened with Oasis. Same thing happened with the Kinks. Same thing happened with, as I was
Yeah,
reminded of last night, the Everly Brothers. People who were creatively suited to one another in a perfect way, but the warring brother syndrome kept them from realizing further hits or further success, or even just being able to play with their brothers. For that matter, there was a lot of in-house warring in the Beach Boys. Mike Love didn't get along with Dennis. Dennis loved Carl, but Carl and Brian, and they were the brothers. They were the inside.
right,
They were the core. Mike, you're just a cousin. Al Jardine, you're just a neighbor. David Marks, you're a kid from down the street. But we're the Wilson brothers, and that means we live in a world that you can never be a part of. But we're in the
right.
same band. We've known each other since high school. True, but you're not a brother.
except
I can't.
except I gotta say that Al Jardine, to me, in many ways, has become my favorite Beach Boy because he just seems to sit there and just let it all go over his head. Now, I don't know if in reality
And
that's
he's
the
had some
reality of it.
he's suffered a lot through his relationship with Mike Love. They voted him out. They cut him from the band. They went on tour and even tell him that he wasn't coming. They did unnecessarily mean and unprofessional things to a guy who had been part of their world since they were sophomores or eighth grade. It's impossible to go back that far with that kind of relationship and say, how can you guys not get it together for crying out loud? You've known each other forever.
Yeah,
Stop treating people like this. Why
yeah,
are you so hateful?
he really has become over time because it just looks like he has been able to let all of that go over his head and just go out there
Yeah,
and play solely for the love of the music match so much that his son Matt tours
good
with
singer.
the band
Yeah,
and has a wonderful voice. You know, you talk about this great father and son business relationship. I mean, here it is. You know, and it's I don't know. He's just over time has really come to exemplify somebody who lets the now I don't know if it's reality or not. It's just my reality, but who lets the business end of the business just go over his head, and he
and
goes out there.
he peaked a little later than a lot of the guys. Of course, Brian Wilson was responsible for providing the music for the hits. But when they got to the album Holland and they did the California saga, on my way to Southern California,
California.
water. I mean, writing songs about California is something that everybody does, but that one captured the coast. It just for
Yeah,
musical capturing the element of what is California, what's it like to breathe the California air, to be on the California sand, to just to be there on a beautiful day. He pulled that out of nowhere, and that's magic. It's
it should be
California
the
magic.
official song of California. It really
Yeah,
should. I mean,
it should.
it's you know it's funny because I you know I mean obviously everybody knows the Beach Boys and the hits, but you and I and especially my friend JD, you know, who really gets into it,
Yeah,
you just listen to certain things that they do that might not be as well known, but yet uh, blow you away at
oh
not
yeah,
only how they were written, but the circumstances that put the seed of the idea in either Brian Wilson or whoever's head.
right.
Usually Brian Wilson. One of my favorite stories about that is the song "Breakaway," which was a hit for
Mhm.
them, and it really was never a hit. It was a chart song,
Yeah,
but it wasn't a hit in the traditional Beach Boys sense. And I think that came along in '69 or '70. And they wrote the song. Murray, their father, and Brian wrote that song when they were watching the Tonight Show. And they, you know, Johnny Carson had said, we're gonna break away.
break
We'll,
away.
you know,
Right.
more to come. We'll be right back. You know, and they show that
Wow.
graphic that they used to show, and
Nice.
that inspired Brian. Murray gets credit. Who knows? You know, um, but you know, it inspired them to write. I think one of the best Beach Boy songs. Besides, you know,
They
it's just a great.
there's that new musical documentary that's out that my daughter Kailani has seen and recommended it to me. But the story of the Beach Boys is always about how they had their hits and how Brian was the genius. But right from the beginning, it's the turmoil and the family problems and the inability to put that behind them. they always succeeded in spite of everything that was going on. Never saying, Brian, you're the man. We need a hit. How about one about surfing? How about one about God only knows? How about this? How about something else? The other bands that are making hits are starting to get into the 60s. They have different imagery, different sound, different end result when the audience is participating in the imagery of the song. We got to change, we got to modernize. And they managed to do all that in spite of the fact that they were in their own way every step of the way. Their father was a problem, their mother was distant, their neighborhood, the roots of their inspiration. It was always a positive, a genius, and a problem. Dennis abusing alcohol and drowning when he was a young man. Carl getting cancer and dying. The fights between the who had the rights and who had song credits. The fact that Murray sold their publishing catalog for peanuts without even discussing it with anybody. All these destructive elements in their relationship, and then their product was striped shirts, white guitars, sunny day on the beach, and their harmonies and their imagery made California seem only romantic, only beautiful, only exciting, only surfer girls. There were no problems in their songs, and that remains the magic of the Beach Boys, and you can't dismiss them because instead of saying, "Oh, these are just guys writing 3-chord songs on the beach about surfing," but Brian Wilson wasn't writing them that way. His inspiration was classical music and the high-lows and the 5-part harmonies of the 50s and the fact that he grew up in Southern California and couldn't surf and wasn't an athlete, but could capture all of that imagery
and he could tell a story
and do songs like "Don't Worry, Baby."
There's there's obviously a lot of film about this. There's many documentaries about the Beach Boys. There's one that I saw, and I've seen so many of them because there's a million of them on YouTube even. But there's a great piece of a documentary where they're in the studio doing God Only Knows. I believe it's God Only Knows. And Brian is, standing over Hal Blaine, and he's holding his hand and hitting the drum with Hal's hand. So this is what I want. I want it like every minute detail of the song. And then they cut, and a few minutes later, he's maybe standing next to Tedesco, and he's and he's showing him how he wants. I want you to pull the string down like this when you hit that note, that chord. And it's amazing to see that. I mean, this guy has the song in his head down to a twang on a guitar.
He would play "Be My Baby" by the Ronettes over and over again. It was an inspiration song for him because he was trying to capture that sound. That's why he used that Gold Star studio, because that's where it was recorded. That's where Phil Spector did a lot of his work. And the fact that that song remained in his mind the perfect pop tune is because of the energy, the theme, but also the depth and power of the track. The backing tracks were impressive to him, and it's what he wanted to recreate in some of his songs.
Who was it? Max Weinberg said, the drummer from the E Street Band, said that if Hal Blaine had never done anything else except the drum opening to "Be My Baby," he would have qualified for the Rock and Roll, for any Hall of Fame, any musician's Hall of Fame. That opening was so good and attracted so many people to want to be drummers that if he hadn't done anything else, that
There
would have
was
been
a there was a on PBS, it was Pledge Week, and they played last night on one of the four PBS stations down in LA that I get the Everly Brothers documentary about their life, and everybody uh, was taken with the guitar opening on their first hit. On Bye Bye Love. It's an acoustic guitar, and it's Don Everly playing it. But the year was 1958. Nobody was playing that way. Nobody had
right.
that energy. And so it grabbed the attention of guitar players and Simon and Garfunkel, um, John and Paul in Liverpool, all the people who were going to go on and have musical careers were drawn to the radio in a way that they couldn't explain. Why that energy grabbed them, why they were taken with that sound. And then it goes into Bye Bye Love and the harmony start, and you go, who the hell is this? Where are these angelic, powerful voices coming from? This mix of two singers that sound like one singer. Who the hell are these guys? Where the hell did they come from? What's going on? We've never heard a sound like that before. And from Buddy Holly to the Beatles to Simon and Garfunkel to any duo that you can think of, and to everybody else who can't play guitar but loved that sound, that was the thing that grabbed them. Like Hal Blaine's drums in the intro were one way to talk about it. Don
Right.
Everly's acoustic guitar in the Into the Bye Bye Love was another way to instantly hook a generation and say, I got you. This song has got you.
Well, it goes against what was the norm at that time. I mean, if I think back to 1958, now again, you have to remember that there's 4 or 5 different divisions of music at that time. There's obviously, what white America is listening to, which is Pat Boone singing Earth Angel or something, or Shaboom Shaboom or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
which most of
Love
the
Letters in the Sand.
but yeah, but the consistency in those songs seemed to me to be, and again, I'm not a musicologist or anything, but they all had some kind of vocal opening. You were hit right away with the words, and so now here come the Everly Brothers, and they're hitting you. They're opening up with a guitar, and and you could see that extend in Buddy Holly the next year with "That'll Be the Day," where the open is
Yeah.
well, that'll be which
Yep.
again went against what was being done in music at that time,
And
except
it stood out. Yeah.
except in black music, where it was almost
Right.
the opposite, where you
The
almost
race
always
charts.
let in with some kind of instrumental um, start because they wanted to get their money's worth out of the band. you know.
The revolution that came from those artists was part of the introduction to the 60s. It's hard to imagine anybody from the Stones to the Beatles to Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas who weren't affected by both Buddy Holly and the Everly Brothers.
Yeah.
You couldn't say you love music or you were inspired to play music or be a musician in those years or even currently now without those artists making a contribution to what you wanted to do and how you heard that music in your head and what you wanted your song to sound like because they changed the spine of music.
Right. Except if you were a black act, because again, you have to remember that in those days, music was as segregated as the country is.
Right.
So you're a white musician. You have to go and seek out Memphis, Nashville.
You got to listen to the Soul Station to hear the songs and the artists that
Right.
are
You
on the
got to
race
go up
charts.
the dial. You got to get into the 14 and 15 and 1600s if you want to hear uh, black music, because it's just not until Alan Freed comes along. Um, it's not being played on white radio stations.
I don't
You
know
get
why
the
I don't know why the Olympics came to mind, but the Olympics are in my Big Boy Pete. They had great stories, great energy, great
alley oop
harmonies,
for the
and
comic
fun.
strip,
A lot of fun,
right?
yeah.
The coasters,
Right.
um, the Cadillacs with little Speedo, with that would do the
Yep.
whole, who was in
And the baby calls me Speedo, but my real name is Mr. Earl.
exactly, Screaming Jay Hawkins,
Yeah.
and the
Put a
showmanship
spell.
of
Yeah.
coming out, and even Gene Chandler with Duke of Earl, where he comes out in the cape and the hat, and he's doing Duke of Earl, and
Yeah.
he throws the cape off, and finishes the song.
And then the great soul balladeers like Jackie Wilson and the guy who wrote "Change Is Going to Come."
Sam, not
Sam Cooke.
Sam Cooke, yes.
Yeah.
There's a great documentary that's on. Is it on Prime or on Netflix? But it's about Stax, and it's like
Yes.
a 4 or 5 part series, I believe.
Excellent.
And please go and watch that, please. I have been to the Stax Museum. Stax is one of the components of soul and rock and roll that that has been, I think, kind of lost in the sauce these days.
Well, if you listen to Otis Redding live in Europe, you'll understand what it was all about. In fact, they were talking about in that in that documentary, Otis Redding was hauling amps and driving the truck around for the Bar-Kays, the backup group. And they said he wants to sing a song. He's got a song for you. He wants to show you that he can sing. And they go, "Oh Jesus, we're tired. We've done the show. We've hired the amps. What the hell? Do we have to do this?" We promised him. Okay, let him sing a song. And I don't know what Otis Redding sang, but I think it was Mr. Pitiful or something he had written. Fa Fa Fa, the sad song.
Yeah.
And they said that they all got chills at the same time. Here's this guy who was just hauling amps. Let him sing. He goes in to sing one tune, and that was it. They all realized that they were in the presence of royalty. And it's a damn shame he died so early. But of all the short lists of music, Otis Redding is on all of them for me, because the exciting translation of emotion that he does without fail every time, the energy that he brings to it, the magnificent joy that he provides. He's having a great time. It can be a sad song,
Right.
it can be a rock song. He's there.
And he does it with it's not instruments, it's just the tilt, the tilt of his voice.
Just a little something that comes naturally.
Yeah, he can change his song, his singing, and take you emotionally there.
Yep.
I mean, he can really, and he's not doing the cape. He's not doing the this. He's not doing the that. He's not doing James Brown. He's not dancing around like a fool. He's just giving you his soul. I mean, that's kind of the textbook definition.
They said that
soul, right?
his go-to maneuver was his pigeon-toed stomp. He's holding the microphone right close to his mouth, and he's doing the pigeon-toed stomp with his feet, keeping time, like when the song "I Can't Turn You Loose" or something, one of those, the big rockers. It was it was something that everyone could see the translation immediately. It made sense to them. It made sense to his audience without any explanation. Just
Right.
the energy and the music worked beautifully in terms of the international total language.
Well, when he goes into that last verse of "Try a Little Tenderness,"
Yeah,
where
when they
he
take
just
off,
it seems like he's been holding back. I mean, you listen to the song, and he's been holding something back the whole song.
which is that Vinny is the trick to it. He won't give
Yeah,
you everything. He is restraining himself, and you can feel it.
right. He's not coming out of the box hitting a home run. He's
No,
bunting the ball, and he's bunting the ball, and he's bunting the ball. And then when
yeah,
it gets to that last verse, and everything all of a sudden, the raw emotion comes out, and again, he's not doing anything but his voice and his, it's coming through the record. There's no
right.
MTV. You can't watch him. You don't even know about this guy, but you hear Sinatra do that song, and then you hear Otis Redding do that song, and you listen to Otis Redding, and you say, "My God, listen to this!" And he's doing that. You got that, got that, got that. When he gets there,
Yeah,
he's got.
he-
He really
he's
got you.
got you. Yes,
you're, you're
and you
not
know that
going anywhere else.
he knew what he was doing, and he took everybody with him. It's just an extraordinary musical experience.
Yeah, I mean, and to be a young kid and listening to that, I still remember being told that I couldn't listen to that kind of music. That that was their music,
Right.
and I was like, no, 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 no. Anything that makes me feel like that
Yeah,
is
that's
my
my
music.
music.
I may be 12 years old or 10 years or 11 years old, but I know that
Yeah,
when
without a
something makes
doubt.
you feel in your bone marrow what that guy is trying or woman is trying to get across to you, how do you don't walk away from that? You what do you try to do? You try to find more of it. Where do I get more of this? How can this make me feel like that?
And to realize that Wayne Jackson and the Memphis Horns and Booker T and the MGs were the backing tracks to virtually the whole experience, how could they go wrong? They had this magic combo behind him, supporting him, writing with him, arranging for him, putting together the few albums that he did, and they were geniuses too. The
Yeah.
combination, the times were right. Everything flashed in the studio, and
When you walk into that that building, that studio, that converted theater in Memphis,
yeah,
when you walk into that place, there's um there's a buzz. There's a you could see that whoever walked through those doors left uh, um an aura, a piece of them in that building. You know, uh, there was just something so unreal about it. And again, like we always talk about, Motown and this and that and the other thing, and Stax for many years would get overlooked, except if you really knew music,
right.
then you kind of knew what they were doing. And they were also um, pretty smart in the sense that they knew how to promote their music, to their audience. Things like Wattstax,
Yeah,
the Black Woodstock, and all of these other different events and marketing that they would put on. They, I mean, they weren't as big as Berry Gordy, but I think they probably gave him a good run for his money.
And of the two, you can't compare Motown very conveniently with Stax because they had so many artists that were designed to be black artists playing to a white audience.
Right.
Otis Redding and Stax, to a degree, did the same thing, but it was
They left the grittiness in.
different roots, different sound, different arrangement, different backing tracks. Most of the Motown tracks were done by uh, Detroit jazz musicians who were studio trained and knew how to play behind them. And if you listen to the tracks on Motown, the backing tracks are extraordinary. They're excellent, beautiful sound, especially the drums. Booker T and the MGs and the Bar-Kays and the Memphis Horns were the roots for Sam and Dave, Rufus Thomas, Carla Thomas, uh, Black Moses, Isaac Hayes. All these
Yeah.
cats were coming out of the same studio.
Yeah. I
Different
mean,
different roots.
you walk into that building, man, and there is just now. I've been to Hitsville, and I've been to the Stax Museum, and
Yeah.
I was there was no comparison. You know, that theater, that block, that whole, and then I guess I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody told me that when I was there, and I took Erin there at a young age. I mean, she was I don't know 12 or something when I took her there. Um,
Mm.
that Aretha Franklin's father's church was like across the street.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Uh, and so, what the heck what must have that block been like? That must have
Busy
been an interesting.
territory. What are you driving,
Crazy.
Vinny?
Oh, Michael, I'm glad you asked. I'm driving a Fiat. I'm driving a Fiat, that cute little Fiat, the Cinquecento, the
The
500.
500? Yeah.
They haven't made it since well, been making them, but they haven't been selling them here since 2019. And so what they've done is they came back and they electrified it.
Makes
And so
sense.
now you can only buy an electric Fiat Cinquecento. And I'm driving one this week. It's the first of they're not they're doing something different with these cars. They're dropping them. They're doing them like limited edition versions and drops.
Uh-huh.
So I'm driving the 500E Red, which is designed in tribute to AIDS help organizations.
I see.
And
Like a special edition.
yeah, yeah, and it's a fun little car. It's not great on. It's a city car. It's a car that you would only
Mm.
buy if you were buzzing around the city because it's only got like I think it's a 200-mile range, 200 to 25, something like that. But it's so damn cute, and it's just different than anything else out there. And maybe with the electric stuff, they won't have as many problems as they have with the gasoline versions.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it. Enjoyed the ride out to the show last night with it.
Sure.
Um, it had enough electricity to get me to Carnation and back, and Carnation to the city, back to the city, and then back up here. And it's a slick little car, and I love it. It's I don't know if it's going to save Fiat, but I sure have a smile on my face when I drive it.
And we'll hear
And
more about it on your show tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
yes, tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock, there'll be much more. We're also going to talk about an issue that is nobody seems to be talking much about. And that is, and we've spoken about it before, but we have more information. What is your car telling the car company and the insurance company about you? And when you sell your car, excuse me, are you Mr. Driver, Mr. Michael Knight driving the car, are you scrubbing the car like you would scrub your laptop computer? Because there is so much information that you're giving your car.
Wow.
And your car retains. Your car has phone numbers, credit card numbers, driving habits. Nissan even profiles your sex life in their agreements. They have the right to retain all that information.
Wow.
So you better be aware of it because it's information that's being sold to marketers. It's information that can potentially harm you, either by hacking it and using your accounts or selling the information to an insurance company so they charge you a higher insurance rate. There's a lot of evil stuff going on. I think it's evil. They call it information.
The collection, yeah.
But I call the collection of that information evil.
It's just data. What are you worried about?
Well, I always love the line that I heard so many times around the passing of the first Patriot Act, which was, if I'm not doing anything wrong, what am I worried about?
Right. If you're innocent, you have no problem. You have no concerns.
Yeah. I got a whole group of people that you could talk to about that. All right. So, yes, please listen tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock right here. We will have that for you. We'll also, the top 5. We will give you the lowdown on the Fiat, or as I like to say on this call, yo, Vinny, cosa guidi questa settimana? Which means, yo, Vinny, what are you driving this week? What do you got planned for the weekend, pal?
I'm going to survive the heat dome and nothing else on the calendar. Little Bo is going to Legoland down in Carlsbad.
Ah, yes.
And I'm pleased to say that I'm not going. I don't
Oh,
go to
Mikey,
Legoland.
you should go.
No.
I mean, what could be cooler than being around a bunch of screaming kids in 115-degree weather?
Good point. I'll reconsider.
All right, man. Well, listen, I will catch up with you Monday morning if the Lord's willing, the creek don't rise. All right, Pally?
See you around 10:10 or thereabouts.
Peace, love, Manischewitz, baby.
It's a wine. What a wine.
Thank you all for listening. Hope you got something out of the show today. We sure did.
Yeah,
Talk to you later.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.